Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. You know I love talking about these lists over and over and over again. Let's talk about the last list. This list is the "It's my turn" list. Again, I talk about these lists that are really designed to help people heal from these relationships. Now, the first list was definitely a downer, right? Talked about that a long time ago. I keep talking about it, the ick list. All the bad stuff that happened in the relationship. But you have to write it down or the euphoric recall will just have you flat on your ass, right? The ick list is the most difficult and possibly the most important of these lists as part of your healing. It's the best way to ensure that you don't forget all the bad things that happened, right? I'm not going to belabor the ick list. You can go watch that video. Then there is the biscuits in bed list, right, which I talked about recently. Those are all the little things you gave up to be in this relationship. Foods you like, TV shows you wanted to watch, your bedtime, how you want to spend a Sunday afternoon. And the biscuits in bed list is sort of a taking account of all those things you gave up. The final list, though, is one I call the "It's my turn." And this is a more aspirational list. This isn't the small stuff. This isn't those little things you gave up. These are the big ones. These are things like the education you never started or you discontinued, the children maybe you never had, the friends you became isolated from, the business you didn't get to start or that got thwarted, the career you hoped to pursue or left earlier than you wanted, the book you wanted to write. These are bigger endeavors and things that you may have been in, doing, and lost, or things you never got to begin in the first place, or things you just couldn't get through or keep doing while you were also managing the narcissistic relationship. Now, narcissistic relationships can undercut and undermine you at different times and affect you differently at different times in your life history. In childhood, the things you lost may be aspirations you were discouraged from pursuing, you were told you were not good enough, not smart enough, and you may have internalized that and, for example, not felt confident in school, which would have made succeeding in school that much harder. You may have been pressured to join a family business you had no interest in, and you also might have been mocked for wanting to pursue a different kind of aspiration or career, or to cultivate an interest that your narcissistic family had contempt for and couldn't imagine you'd have an interest different than theirs. Or they may have simply been so disinterested in you that as a result, you simply didn't get guidance on how to pursue a given field of interest, or that you even had a right to go and pursue something you were interested in. As you get older, your life track may be shaped not only by family, but now by partners. A narcissistic relationship can be a dream killer. You may be insulted, devalued, and put down so much that you internalize it, and you don't believe that you're good enough, whatever you're trying to do, or what you're doing or attempting to do is mocked, it's ridiculed, it's treated as though it's a joke. Remember, narcissistic folks are either competitive, and so they're threatened by you, or they're snobby, and they have contempt for you, or they just don't care about what you do as long as you're always available to them and what they want. And as a result, what that means for you is that you may not have the time to pursue what you want, or you have to ensure that they're okay first, and with whatever other time you have left to maybe try and do what you want, and that is rarely enough. If you have kids or pets or anything else that needs to be cared for, there will be no equitability in how you do those responsibilities. They ain't going to help. So you will be busy caregiving and having no support from them, which will make it very difficult to excel or pursue the other things you want to do. And heaven forbid you ever share your dreams or your aspirations with them about a book you may want to write, or a degree that you might want to pursue, or a business that you want to open. More often than not, the narcissistic folks, again, will mock it, will put it down. They'll tell you how you won't be able to do it. They'll go on and on about how most businesses fail in the first year, etc., etc. And in the workplace, narcissistic folks will do things like steal your work, thwart your career, keep you stuck in dead-end jobs, and have no problem having you work your ass off for years and never recognizing it fully. If you have a narcissistic boss or manager, you could spend years working at something with no chance of being advanced, but perhaps being future faked and being told that someday you might get this opportunity or you might get that opportunity, but in the meantime, you'll get underpaid and undervalued for the hard work you're doing. So let's go then back to the list, right? It's my turn. Whether you stay or go in a narcissistic relationship, this is a useful exercise. Once you get to radical acceptance, your effort is no longer going into making this relationship work, but rather into workarounds or creating a full life for yourself despite the narcissistic person. This list can be painful to construct at first, but it can also be a wake-up call. As you make this list, think about what did I always want to do or be or produce or create, maybe even see or ever want to live? Lay that list out. And let me tell you, this list maybe is just as painful as the ick list, right? On the first pass, just focus on the things you wanted to do. Don't get lost in, well, I'm too old to do that. It's too late. There isn't enough time. It's too expensive. Don't get lost in it. Just make the damned list. Maybe at one time you wanted to go to graduate school or nursing school or written for a magazine or lived in another country or lived in a different part of the country. You may have wanted to pursue your interests in the arts. Just let it rip. Everything you wanted to be. Maybe a short list. Maybe one thing, but make the list. Again, this is an incredibly bittersweet process, so take your time with it because you may feel the need to put this down from time to time. There will be grief that comes from doing this, but it's worthwhile as part of healing. Do it. Write it out. Then, when you feel ready, go back, look at that list, and get creative about what can be translated into action. Maybe you don't go back to graduate school. Maybe you take a certificate program in something you're interested in. Take some night classes. Maybe you don't write the great American novel, who really does? But you write a short story or two and maybe even submit it to a literary magazine. Or maybe you just do it for yourself. Maybe you don't open a bakery, but you sell those fabulous pies you make every so often at a local farmer's market or a craft fair. You may not go to medical school, but you may sign on to be a Red Cross volunteer. You may choose to do other volunteer work that aligns with your interests. You may buy some canvases from an art supply store and set up in a corner of a basement or garage or in a bathtub, if that's the only spot you have, and make the paintings. This doesn't have to be grandiose, but rather it's meant to be you recognizing that you have always had interests and gifts that deserved always to be cultivated, but now finally could be cultivated and perhaps shared with the world. Listen, the narcissistic folks will always keep rolling their eyes at you. This is a gentle reminder. Do not share this list with them. Do not share that you're going to do this with them. And I might even sort of encourage you to not share this on social media until you're really ready for the world to see it. The point of this list is not for you to quit your job and move to Rome, but you do you. If that's your story, then great, do it. But it's about opening yourself back to yourself and living into that truth. So many of us got onto narcissistic relational treadmills and never stopped to think if they were really what we wanted anymore, even when we got out of these relationships or disengaged from them. This list is not something you do in a day or a weekend. It's a much longer process, a sort of existential deep dive. But the difference this time is as you think about your aspirations, you're doing this informed by radical acceptance. This time, anything you do, you're not doing this to get their notice or their permission or their praise. This is things about you, your goals, your hopes, your aspirations. Healing means individuation, authenticity, and cultivating your identity. And this part of your story and expressing it is part of that process. And one last thing, I wanted to let you know something exciting. I have a new book coming out in February called It's Not You. It's available for pre-order now. Click the link in the video description to check it out. Exactly these kinds of things. Deep dives into things like making these lists to help you heal. Healing is possible. It takes a minute. Get the book to find out how. Thanks again.